looking at some of this timber, Clare County, where we've been doing some of this TSI and hinge cutting for deer habitat improvement. What we're seeing here as a result, probably one of the biggest results that we're seeing at this point, is these very large, almost super highways that are being created by the structural cover that's kind of pushing these deer around the outer edge. It's going to create this massive travel corridor right on the edge of this bank. We're kind of on a little bit of a shelf on this point. Over to this side it's a little higher ground. Down in here it's a little lower ground. It's kind of the edge of the shelf, and you can see the massive trails that are kind of cutting through here now, running around the outside banks of this. So that'll definitely funnel those deer into these kind of pinch points where in the future somebody can set up a stand location, try to cut them off. Bedding here to this side, bedding up in there further, bedding back into there has been cut as of yesterday, and we're definitely seeing a pile of deer in here from yesterday's cut. We've probably pushed out 15 or 20 deer out of this section here already this morning. But it's working pretty well in our favor so far. So if you're looking for some tips as to the ways that you can inspire better deer travel through certain corridors, this is a practice you might want to consider. It's just kind of buffering those edges to push them to these outer edges to run these specific trails, kind of funnel them down, especially if you have 15 or 20 different trails coming out of a section. You can narrow them down, make them a lot tighter. We're walking out of the natural or neutral area into the section that we cut yesterday. Let's get a little idea of what there is for fresh deer movement in here just from bringing this down last night. Here's a pretty good indicator as to not necessarily just the deer being hungry, but for a good addition to your browse, supplementing. Here's a good way to do it, is to bring down trees. We've got some maples in here. The deer are clearly browsing on these tops already. As we work through here, we can see just how heavily the deer have been in here last night. But here's the cut section, which in these areas, we're dealing with a lot of red oak up in this area of the state, black oak actually. And a lot of this is being kind of infected or affected by oak wilt. And so what we're doing in this area is the oak regeneration in here is pretty substantial. It's right on point as to what we're looking for. So much of this we're going to expect to regen into native oak back into this area again. And so we're going to have increased mass production through that. The additional browse potential that'll be produced by all this cutting will be beneficial for all kinds of species, but especially, or more particularly, deer. And looking in these areas though, I mean, we can look way back into there and it's cut pretty heavy. So ideally what we did is we kind of came in here and we knocked out a bunch of these maple that are in here, just because maple right now just isn't a whole lot of value to us on this property. It actually does better for us being on the ground as far as browse. So what we're gonna see here is, even where we walk up, where we were cutting and filling chainsaws and taking lunch break and everything yesterday, where we parked the four-wheeler to get in here, we walk up in there. The deer were coming in real hard behind us last night. They were just waiting for us to leave. I mean, look at the disturbance on these trails. Come up into here. But here's where we parked last night. You got all kinds of fresh droppings, and you're in here browsing all of this already, if that'll even focus. But yeah, all this has been chewed on already. They come in and just get started on these tops right away. They don't give it no break. But this will kind of give you a little better idea of what the cut size is. Most of our cuts are gonna be, they can sometimes consist of upwards of 4 acres in total. Many of these cuts, however, have what we call hallways cut between them. And right here, we've got, in this section, there's probably about 2.5 acres total in this cut. And as you can see, we left a few maples in here, not very many, but a few. The rest of it is going to be the native oak for the area, and that we're hoping to get some seed that drops in here. You can see some oak regeneration kind of popping up in this pocket. So we're hoping that kind of explodes. That'll be a really nice habitat in the future. But as you can see, this goes back quite a ways. It adds a whole lot of density to the forest floor. And that's kind of the idea that we're looking for. Like when we were in that first section, it was pretty open. You could see that in the video pretty clearly. Now you can see that if a deer is on the other side of that wall, you're not gonna see it. And that kind of adds another layer of comfort for the deer, as well as for you as accessing hunting locations. If we take a little step over here, back kind of where we came from, this is where the hallway is, one of the hallways, and you can see it kind of gets a little bit more open here in this middle, and you can see that there are some hinges that go towards the inside of the cut, which would be to the outside of the hallway. The hallway cuts right down through here, and you got a small patch here, and you got the larger patch there, and then on the far end, way down there, there's a hallway that cuts across, and that kind of separates these front 2 cuts from a larger patch in the back. And that's in a corner. There's a corner there because there's a creek that comes from be to the right side of the screen over there, comes down and meets down there with another creek that comes across from down there. And this little corner pocket in there is going to be pretty much as far as we're trying to get the deer to venture when they're coming off to the fields from over there. We're hoping that they come in, get into this pocket, and bed near that terrain difference in there where the creek kind of meets and comes to a corner. So that way there's kind of an ending point for where the deer bedding location will be. At least that's the plan.